things look very promising. I sent a proposal out to a gentleman to do his business plan today.
All right, ready?
Yep, go.
Welcome to Intern Whisperer Live, the show all about internships and how to survive them. This is Jerron.
This is Isabella, and joining us for this episode is David Hunter with Coldwell Banker NRT and Austin Bott from UCF, Valencia College graduate, and a former Pivot Business Consulting intern.
Coming up this episode of Intern Whisperer Live, we have David Hunter, who is the Regional Commercial Director, East Coast of Florida and National Bank Specialty Group at Coldwell Banker Commercial NRT, which focuses on commercial real estate transactions. We also have Austin Bott, a previous finance intern with Pivot Business Consulting. We're also going to talk about some great leaders, entrepreneurship, and the coolest innovation in real estate. Also, we're going to talk about the real estate industry.
So, how can people find us? Look for us on our Facebook page. It's going to be two different places. This is always good news. Facebook.com/Pivot Biz Consult, and then also Intern Pursuit. Then on our Twitter, it's at Pivot Biz Consult and at Intern Pursuit. And then we have our game. I always want to make sure I point people to the game. So go to our Intern Pursuit website. internpursuit.com, and then /game. You can play our game there. And we have LinkedIn. You can listen to us on the mixlr.com /Valencia College radio channel. Make sure you put it all together and then follow the radio station. You'll get notifications on how to follow our show, and then you can watch us live on Facebook.
And before we start the show, let's talk about our first sponsor. Starter Studio is an accelerator and co-working area located in downtown Orlando. A cool co-working space to 100-plus companies working in areas of technology and supportive businesses. A healthy startup community doesn't exist in a bubble, and Starter Studio is working to connect startups to a broader entrepreneurial ecosystem that will help them grow. You can find them at starterstudio.org. Thank you, Starter Studio.
Okay, so we have no transition music, so
Andy.
That's okay. Andy does that, and Andy's not with us tonight. So for all of our listeners that like Andy, he is unfortunately not here tonight, so I am Andy's wannabe person today. I am the person. So David Hunter, who is the Regional Commercial Director, East Coast of Florida, and National Bank Specialty Group at Coldwell Banker Commercial, NRT. What a mouthful, David. I don't know how you fit all of that on a business card. That's amazing.
Oh, there's more.
That's really a mouthful.
That's just what I own up to. So.
Gotcha. All right. So first question is, where did you go to college and what was your degree?
I went to the University of Florida in Gainesville.
We're supposed to be going chomp, chomp, go
are.
Gators,
yes,
right?
Yes, we are. Born and bred. Parents went to school there. I went to school there. Sisters all went to Florida State, so they were, I guess, the bad side of the family. But no, University of Florida. That's I studied pre-law, and which was basically history and poli-sci with the program tailing to send you to law school, but I decided not to go that route.
Well, little known fact, my first 2 years were at University of Florida too. That's where I pledged my sorority. You might have to move your microphone just a little closer to you.
Okay.
Or sit closer, whatever. It's got to be intimate here.
Yes.
Yep. And my first 2 years there, gigantic school, and I love the school, but I graduated. My last 2 years are from Rollins, and so I love Rollins even more. What can I say? But go Gators.
I love Rollins too. I'm a big fan. So.
Interesting little fun fact. I know we're going to get into this later, but I know you have this artistic side of you, and I think originally one of the things you had shared with me one time is you were thinking of even being an art major.
Yeah, I had somebody pursue me to see if I would go undergrad in art, or at that time the beginnings of computer art programs, but it sounded like too much work.
Oh, really?
Yes.
And so now, what you're doing now is like no work at all.
No,
Yeah.
I love to read, and I mean, people make fun of me because
You're a nerd, and that's
yeah,
okay. That's cool.
I am a closet nerd for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll find me hiding in the sci-fi store now, but no, I loved to read as a kid. I grew up in the middle of nowhere, so I was always reading something, and history and political science interest me. So that was where I found my strong suit.
Mm-hmm. And when you were thinking about school, one of the things that many students aren't really aware of is like industries. They don't understand the concept of industries. It's not something they hear about certainly in high school, and they get exposed to it when they go to college. So what industries were you thinking of going into? Because industries mean a general
Well, I'll
career
say
path.
this. I really had no distinct, clear path as to where I wanted to go. I believe I had what would be deemed as an informal internship. So I knew what I wanted to help others with. So fortunately, I had someone that was a mentor to me that said, hey, come and work with me and let me show you the ropes. So one thing led to another. So pretty much the 3 years of college, I worked for him and then continued to work for him after college. So it just evolved as it continued to go forward.
Mm-hmm. And I remember one time when we were talking, you've worked in the finance realm. You've
Yeah.
also worked in banking. So
Yeah,
it's pretty broad.
Listen, I've always told people I was either too stupid to say no or too over anxious to raise my hand to say yes, I'll go. But I was very fortunate. This gentleman was, when I say made a very big impression on me. He was what I would say is a self-educated Renaissance man. He had an appreciation for all things, especially things he didn't know, and he made a big impression on me in that you don't necessarily have to know everything. You just need to know the people that do, and develop those relationships. Learn what you don't know, stick with what you do. And that helped me a lot. He was in banking. He was in, outside of banking, he was in other financial realms. He was in real estate development. He was an entrepreneur on multiple levels. So he, taught me the value of understanding all of those different components. So.
Yeah. One of the things that I always like, and these are things that I haven't discussed with you yet, so you have no idea. I'm going to throw it out here. You have a real love of innovation, and oh my goodness, you come back and we've had discussions on all types of really cool things that are out there, and it's up to you if you want to disclose any of that. But you have an interest in investors, in the entrepreneur space and putting investment dollars into things like that, and then just the innovation that you've shared. And this is kind of, it wasn't in our list of questions, but I really want to talk about that and, go ahead and expand.
I get people who ask me, how did you wind up here? And it always comes down to, I'm looking, where's everything going? When I say everything, everybody has different facets of their life, and they look at change. Obviously, technology has changed communications and jobs, and so I think just to be satisfied to be in one realm, it can lead to disappointment. So I'm always looking to learn more, do more, especially with the Internet of Things coming, and it's a bright future for everybody. And I would say I would like to think I'm a futurist, that I like looking towards where things going, but I realize my shortcomings, so I have to rely upon a lot more smarter people than I am. And
I don't think you're alone, but I would definitely define you as a person that is forward thinking and almost, I would say a thought leader, because things that you put out there when we've talked about what does the real estate industry look like, we'll touch on that later. You think ahead of where most of the people are in your particular industry.
Can people on the radio see I'm blushing? No. I appreciate that, and I think that again comes from having worked with such great mentors. When I say, one had like an 8th grade education and others had graduate degrees, and I learned from everybody that there are, ways of looking at things, and when they say you learn how to learn, that to me is a big lesson.
Mm-hmm. So why did you end up choosing real estate?
I think it chose me. I was working with this gentleman in college, And all things led back to fixed assets, land. They're not making any more of it. Location, location, location. There were things that were just pragmatic fundamentals that I really liked, and because I had a little bit of an artistic side, I liked the creative part of saying, what could it be? So everybody I teach, I kind of tell them to look at it. I have 7 deadly questions, and depending on the day, what they are, but really to develop the highest and best use for that particular piece of property or investment, whatever the case may be.
That's interesting. We'll have to come back to those 7 deadly questions. That sounds intriguing. Okay, so you and I have known each other probably pretty close to 4 years, I want to say now, and that you were previously a guest for the Florida Patient Association, a nonprofit that's near and dear to your heart. So our listeners can actually go and find you on our if they look on our Facebook feed and soon to come podcast page, they'll be able to find more information about that. So I do want to make sure I give a shout out on that. But you're here because of Coldwell Banker commercial today. So what have you learned from working with interns? I know that was something that you really wanted to touch on because they're phenomenal people.
If I could get the sound effect, it would be patience. I have learned a lot. They have taught me that the learning curve for myself, particularly, continues to evolve. Some of these younger people are walking in, and I am amazed at the ability to assimilate and decipher information, and their ability to work on projects that I would not have really been able to grasp when I was their age. And I think it's just a tribute to what education is doing.
Internet of Things?
Well,
and education.
Yeah, but the Internet of Things
we didn't have the internet when we were in school.
No, but I will say this. I'm so impressed by the I guess the quality of the people that are coming through the door. That's a tribute to you and Intern Pursuit and what's happened. And this program is an example of that. I mean, the talent and the things that you guys are doing are amazing. So I'm just very pleased, and I would say they've taught me a lot. And I wish I'd had a venue like this. I can tell employers, if you're looking for a source of talent, then this is probably the best place I could identify at the time.
Oh, that's so kind of you. Thank you. So I created and trained you on an intern management compliance program. Okay. And what is the most important point that you learned about staying in compliance?
It definitely, with having systems in place and the things that you've taught us, and it has, I would say I've had no issues relative to conflict of interest or any improprieties or anything that I've seen that could have been miscued or some type of legal issue. Anything that could have possibly happened has been eliminated, short of a natural disaster.
Oh, wow, that's like really big. So, okay, I appreciate that one also. So how has this intern program that these interns work with you, how has that given you a return on your investment in your own business?
Well, I would say there's a couple of ways of looking at it. In the profession, we would say IRR. My personal my personal internal rate of return has been getting to work with people that I genuinely like and being able to see their maturation process similar, which I'm sure my mentors saw, but I was able to see things in different ones, and quite frankly, there's such a communal group. They've continued to help each other develop and more, and that's paid multiples. I mean, from the very first time that we had an intern, thanks to you, and establishing the program to what's happening today, these guys have built on a legacy to where the new ones are benefiting from those days, and I think even the ones in the past are benefiting from being involved with creating something out of a vacuum.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So we're going to go into a different direction here. Now, on the previous show, I'm going to ask you about leaders. It's going to be What 3 leaders on a global level, a local level, and a personal level, living or dead, have that you believe are extraordinary and influenced your life?
Number one, I would say Jesus.
So
and-
global
Yeah, that's
or personal?
That would be in the universe of things.
Okay.
My faith in Jesus Christ and what that's led, where it's led me, the confidence it's given me, the trials and tribulations, as I was talking last time, and I was kind of thinking of different people at the time, but Winston Churchill for overcoming so many obstacles, and even more so probably Abraham Lincoln. So that would be universal through global. Local, I would probably most attribute to people that I'd worked with. And when I say that, I try and make sure and say no one's ever worked for me, because I had people near and dear to me say, you don't work for me, you work
Right.
with me. So I would say Dean Brantley was probably the most bonding relationship I had, where the guy took the time to say, hey, you may not want to approach it from that direction next time. Even to go retroactive and taught me things even years later. Clark Butler for being my first real solid example of a guy who worked hard and actually outworked everyone. So that's probably the local. Lastly would be family, I would say. I had a mother who was self-made in the finance industry and banking, which really didn't exist for women at the time. And when they say I saw firsthand how if she had been a man, she probably would have been the CEO of their bank. So
That's interesting. So I want to make sure, is it okay? I'm going to start sharing our show notes in the blog, and is it okay to put those people's names out there?
Sure.
Awesome. So I'll confirm those with you a little bit later before we leave. And how does innovation fit into your industry? How do you think it's fitting into the real estate? Because there's so many real estate agents out there, right?
Okay, so I would say that innovation is changing our industry at light speed. There are industries that have been static for so long because they were people intensive. The Internet of Things, the Internet in general, software, predictive analytics are changing things at just an amazing pace. I think our industry will be so different in 3 to 5 years. We'll look back at it almost as if it were the horse and buggy when they started seeing cars come by.
Yeah.
I envision in the next couple of years you'll wake up, you'll answer your email, and you'll have at least one, if not multiple, offers on your property waiting for you on your email, unsolicited. So from that all the way down to your roof emailing you and saying, "Hey, we've got a leak." So real estate universally is going to change. It's going to change finances. Predictive analytics can tell you that 7.5 years is the average, hold period for an investment property. And suddenly people who have owned a shopping center or office building are going to start receiving letters of interest at the 7th year. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah. So you're an entrepreneur. We know that being in real estate, you're an entrepreneur. But I know you have other interests too. So what has your entrepreneurial journey been like?
I have found that opportunities have come to me in the forms that I didn't necessarily recognize at the time. In the past and even now, I mean, I'm very, I would say, I make a concerted effort to look at everything that happens so that I'm not missing something. And I tell everybody that you're going to get, different looks. And when I say looks, they come in different packages. So what appears to be the worst deal might not be the worst deal, and what appears to be the best deal might not be the best deal. So take the time to really look. And I hope it's been an impression on these guys and girls to learn the basics, because the fundamentals allow you to do more.
I would agree with that. Well, so we're going to be finishing up. We're finished up with David, and we're supposed to have transition music. So
We can think of something. Welcome to the Intern Spotlight with Austin Bott.
Thank you.
I got you. A previous Pivot Business Consulting intern, Valencia College graduate, and now UCF student. How you doing, Austin?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
We're glad to have you. So, since you're from Valencia, do you have any shout-outs before we begin?
Sure. Well, and we're going to talk about me and my internship journey a little bit. And so I think it's appropriate to kind of give a little background that when I first came to Isabella looking for an internship, it was at a point in my life where I had made some mistakes. I actually got kicked out of UCF, and Valencia took me in and let me come in and still continue my education and finish my AA degree. So I'm definitely thankful for that, and I kind of want to give them a shout out about making that happen for me.
Yay, Valencia.
Where dreams come true.
Right,
There we
exactly.
go.
Awesome.
Yeah, that is true, too.
But really, community college is, and now it's a full-on college, is such an important thing because it's hard for someone to go to a university at such a high cost starting off. And so for Valencia to be here and other colleges around the state to offer programs and that people can afford is a really big thing.
Oh, yeah, I understand that completely. I came from Indian River State College, and I
Okay.
believe that was like the third cheapest when it came to credit hours.
Okay.
But it was
yeah.
still a great school, and I also had a theater scholarship that paid for all my classes. So I'm like, you can take what you'll get.
There you go. Absolutely.
All right, but now let's talk about UCF. First of all, what is your major?
So my major at UCF is interdisciplinary studies with a concentration on public affairs and legal studies, and I have a minor in political science and finance.
Okay.
So interdisciplinary studies is a program where you choose multiple degrees or multiple subject areas, and you work on combining those subject areas and kind of seeing where the gaps are. And so it's almost like a build your own degree, but I think it's really valuable because the world is interdisciplinary. It's not just you
It's not
go
just
into
one thing.
one industry and you do nothing but that. And people who do that, that's great. We need those people, but we also need people to fill in the gaps. So
Is it kind of like a little MBA program, but it's not an MBA?
well, right. So, and it doesn't have to be business focused necessarily. Some people do it for different
Psychology?
sciences. Some people do it for psychology and legal studies. And so, mine is kind of I would call mine the business version because I get the finance aspect, and then I also get public affairs, how governments do things, and legal studies, which the law affects everything. So, and that's definitely valuable to me in my career and hopefully in real estate. Where it kind of plays off the finances, what the government's doing, what the zoning is, what is it, and what are the legal obligations or requirements associated with that. So,
And what made you think that you had to be the guy to fill in that gap, like you said earlier?
well, that's a good question. I just found that my interests were all over the place and not necessarily in one area. So this allowed me to, explore all my interests in one degree.
I really like that idea, honestly, because when I was looking at going to school, I was just like how David was sharing, is going, oh, law. I think everybody thinks they're going to be a lawyer or a doctor. And then I went, nope, don't want to do that. And I was trying to figure out what it was that I did want to pursue. I chose it based on what I like to do, and it was just one particular thing, English major. I love the fact that UCF offers this type of an opportunity where students can, like you said, build your own degree. That's awesome.
Right.
All right, and how did you meet Isabella?
Oh,
So I met Isabella through looking for an internship. I had been applying to different internships, and I found Pivot Business Consulting online, and I thought, hey, this would be a really cool way to get into the business world as a consulting business where they see multiple different types of businesses and nonprofits. And she was nice enough to take me on board and show me the way. So
oh, that's nice. I remember meeting him, and he looks really, really young. He still looks really, really young. And I looked at him and said, you look like you're 12. He's way older looking, though, now. I mean, he's very young. And it was just amazing to me that he was so fresh out of school and looking for this opportunity, and I was just thrilled to be able to work with him.
And how long ago was it that you guys met?
So let me think. That would probably have been 2013.
Yeah, it was right when I had launched Pivot.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it was that summer of 2013.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
14.
so. 14. Yeah, it had to
14?
be.
Yeah.
David would know better than
David
us.
knows.
14,
We're going to
yeah.
trust David. We're going to trust him.
And what do you think was the most valuable thing you learned from your time during your internship with Pivot?
Well, I definitely got a broad-based what is business and what is a nonprofit and how do things sort of work. Hadn't gotten into any specific classes at that point. It was just general education courses. So getting a real-world experience was definitely something very valuable for me.
And what do you think? I know you've learned a lot, obviously, since 2013, but what do you think that you learned from your internship that you think propelled you forward?
Oh, and let me kind of set this one up. So we have a hashtag that we're working to trend, and it's called hashtag What I Learned. So this is the key question here. It's like what I learned, and your response is going to be the little quote that gets put in there. So it's what I learned, and it also applies to employers. So that's why I was asking David, what is it he learned from working with students?
Sure. Well, it was such a broad internship because I got to work on the nonprofit side, and then I got to work with David at Coldwell Banker. So I learned how to manage multiple tasks at the same time. I also learned a little bit about adult babysitting, where sometimes you have to follow up for things multiple times because it's not getting done. So definitely project management, and like I say, the adult babysitting aspect of it.
I would tell him, don't be afraid to manage up. And
at
so
me.
that's really where it is. He's calling it adult babysitting. I called it managing up because, like, we have crazy amount of stuff going on in our heads. So he did good.
All right. And where do you see yourself in commercial real estate in the next 5 years?
So I don't know that I'll be in commercial real estate per se, but definitely something related to it. My goal is to work somehow involved in development projects, whether it's a commercial real estate or whether that's an institutional thing or whether it's in the form of a public-private partnership. I see some sort of real estate development or governmental project helping a development, something along those lines. I'm currently working with the Creative Village project in UCF downtown, and so something like that, whether it's here in Orlando or somewhere else, I'd like to be a part of.
So what's super cool about that is he got some experience working with a nonprofit, and that's where Creative City is about. But he's worked in real estate. He's got this interest in government side. So it's kind of pulling all of his pieces together where he had some exposure. That's cool.
Yeah, it really is. And that's such a cool project because it's where the old Amway Center was, and it's on the border of Paramore and where, Paramore homes were. And there's nothing really going on that in that area. And so this is a government coming in and saying, okay, a master developer has rights to improve this area, and there's a CRA to raise money to improve the infrastructure, and now UCF is going there to draw business there. And so it's a coordination of private industry, government, and education coming together to transform an area. So I just think it's something that couldn't happen without all those partners.
And I'm also going to give a shout out. Valencia is part of that UCF package
Valencia
too.
also, yeah.
So it's Valencia and UCF. Fun fact, UCF, second largest university in the country. Valencia is now moved up to the first largest in the country, as a 2-year college. It's now expanded into 4. They have the largest amount of population, and they are a giant. When you put them together, they're even mega giant.
All right, Valencia and UCF, where dreams always come true.
Always come true. Always, yeah. Yeah.
All right, but currently, since I know you are a commercial real estate agent, I know that means you're also an entrepreneur. So do you have any specific entrepreneur stories that you'd like to share?
Any specific entrepreneurial stories?
Now, you made some money, so you might want to share that one.
I did. And that was part of, I'll be honest, it wasn't all me. It was with the help of Isabella and David putting me into this position. And it first started with me being an intern with Isabella and kind of going on loan in our intern management program to Coldwell. And David kind of threw me in there with one of the investors from China, Uncle Wen, as we like to call him. And he gave me the opportunity to do a lot of searches for him, looking for property, and then eventually gave me the opportunity to work on selling one of his properties. And I think he only really gave me that opportunity both because of Isabella and David vouching for me, and then also me diving all the way in and doing my best that I could. And that materialized into me making some real money probably a year and a half down the road. So the entrepreneurial lesson there is just dive in and do your best, and good things will happen.
Okay, I just want to make sure I give a timeout because I'm pretty sure David's going to agree with me on this one. I appreciate the fact that you acknowledge me. I'm sure David does also. But your work ethic is one that's just extremely, you're dedicated, you have high ethics and high morals. And I know that what you got from that is something, because that's your work ethic. And so it wasn't just us. It was definitely, you threw yourself all the way in there.
Absolutely. The tenacity of a pit bull.
Yeah. So we're not going to let you not acknowledge your own strengths and your own,
I can add to that. He stepped up, and if there's anything for someone to emulate, I just heard the enrollment clicking going up as he was talking about from Valencia to UCF. But I can tell anybody looking and aspiring to do an internship, if they're half as diligent as Austin was, they will do well.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that. So we're just going to give you that little love there because you're awesome and we recognize that.
Well, thank you both. As he says, tenacity of a pit bull, but maybe exterior appearance of a chihuahua.
Not really. No. Okay. Back to you, Jerron.
And I know since all these things that you've learned through your internship and through Dave and Isabella, is there any wisdom or any advice that you would like to pass on to others seeking internships as well?
Sure. Well, definitely be a sponge and commit yourself all the way. If you put in your effort and you're there to listen and absorb as much as you can definitely get something out of it. An internship is not just something that you're going to put on your resume. It's for you to learn and gain experience, and that's real value that an employer is giving you. So don't take it for granted and give your best shot at it.
I never do.
Yep. And you're awesome also.
Thank you.
I'm throwing that over there to you. When we have the guests, it's always about the guests too, but you do a great job. Thank you.
I appreciate it. All right, and besides internships, for those still just going through college, do you have any tips or suggestions for ways for them to fund their education?
Sure. Well, one way could be, as we mentioned earlier, the college route starting out versus university, I think, is a way to get a discount. And then probably working your way through is a good way to do it too. It's definitely manageable to work your way through at a 2-year institution and get things rolling that way.
So you mean have a job?
Yeah, have a job.
Keep a job, yeah.
If you
That's
can.
really good time management there. Oh, we've got our disco lights going on.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome.
So yeah, they're going. But really good time management when you can have a job and go to school and learn how to study and then still manage personal life, whatever that is, which I know you do also, Jerron, because you have 2 internships, a job, you're in extracurricular, and then you also,
It's a lot, but I make it work.
Yeah,
But
and that's what he does too.
But going back to time management, since you mentioned it, to Isabella and you, how do you guys think you found that balance? Do you think you've always kind of had that inside you where you were always able to manage your time wisely? Or do you think it just took a lot of mistakes or...
You go first.
I would say no. It's still finding the balance. And sometimes that's definitely a weakness of mine, is kind of stacking the plate too full and not being able to do everything. And over time, I've learned to just say no to some things so you can do the things you have efficiently. But also, it's better to make more time for things that are going to be productive than making time for Netflix at the end of the day. So if I'm stacked with too much on my plate, then that means that I'm making the most of my time. So
Yeah, I agree. The ability to say no is key because so many people will say, hey, will you be on this committee? Yeah. Would you volunteer in this capacity? Can you? And a lot of it is when you're in business for yourself, it is donating things to other businesses and, whatever it is that's out there. So you can do an internship that's unpaid. It's the same if you're a business owner. You're still having to either donate services, donate something. I don't think a person has to say yes to everything. And so I am not the person that has learned to manage time very well, because I start my day at 6:30, and then it's like 11 when I'm finished. I don't know, David, how do you do? How do you do with time management? Do you learn how to say no?
Well, I'll say I heard what you said about working through college, and I did too. I would advise people that structure is important, and having a job helps create structure, and just being able to recognize what the priorities are. So that helped me immensely.
I think prioritizing, that's a point that none of us brought
Right.
up. So
Yeah.
that's definitely something that's there. So that's valuable, yeah.
Yeah, with the prioritizing, there's a saying that a good leader is always juggling and knows which balls they can drop and which ones they need to keep juggling. And so that's kind of part of it. Maybe it's saying yes to everything and then knowing what you can leave till later and what you need to do right in that moment.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a magician, because one of those balls is going to be hanging in the air. It's not that they got dropped. They're just like, it's suspended for just a little bit of time. Yeah.
And since you mentioned leaders, 3 leaders, living or dead, on a global level, local level, and personal level, that you find extraordinary.
Okay. Well, I'm actually going to name 3, although David named about 25, I think.
But they're a good 25.
They were good. They were pretty good. I think on a global level, and I had to think about this a little bit, but on a global level, I'm going to choose Elon Musk, and not because he's necessarily succeeded in everything he's done, but he takes some real, drastic paths that he believes in, and I really admire that as far as what he's done with SpaceX and some of the innovation that he's done, which is a theme that we're talking about, where he's reusing rockets now, which is something that people probably would have never thought of if he didn't come along and say that he wanted to go to Mars. And so him doing things like that and just from sitting in traffic and saying, oh, I'm going to build a tunnel under the ground, and now it's happening. He takes his ideas and he really goes all into them and gets people behind him. And so I really admire that, and we need more people like that pushing the human race along rather than just looking back and trying to maintain. We need to keep pushing the edge, pushing the envelope.
Advancement.
So, yeah, so I admire that. On a more local level and getting kind of political, our local representative here, Carlos Guillermo Smith, is a trailblazer and a very unique individual. He's a politician that I respect a lot, not necessarily because I agree with all of his policy, but because he ran on a platform and he stuck to it, and he doesn't play political games. He goes up to Tallahassee and he cuts through the BS, and I like that. I like that a lot. So I admire him quite a bit. I don't know how long he'll last up there because he does that. He's going to get squeezed out maybe, but I definitely admire the way that he does things. And then on a personal level, I've got to appreciate my 2 mentors right here next to me that have done so much for me. Well, really, and they saying I'm being so nice, but they
Checks
really
in the
have.
mail.
They really have done a lot for me in my life and taken me from a low point to really putting me on the path that I'm on now. So
Okay, blushing.
I appreciate
Right.
that.
Yeah, thank you. That's
Hey,
really kind
pass
of
it forward. We've had the same. I've said it over and over. Somebody did the same for me. So
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that everybody should remember when you give those kind of acknowledgments out, that this is an investment. Every relationship, we decide how much time we want to invest into that person. And if we invest a lot, it's because we really believe in that person. So it says a lot about what we think about you.
Well,
So,
thank you for believing.
Yeah, we do.
And slightly switching gears a little bit, what is the coolest innovation that you've seen in tech?
So it's still kind of evolving, and it's going to be maybe a positive and a negative transformation. But
Sure.
And David mentioned it earlier. It's the Internet of Things. So it's not just the power of the internet, but it's the power of the internet in everything. It's your fridge telling you that your milk has gone bad and just ordering new milk without you even knowing. It's your roof telling you that it's leaking, and just the knowledge and the data that's going to come with that is going to change the way we do everything. And I think of it from a real estate perspective more, but if you think of it as from transportation and just a way of life, it's gonna change the way we do everything. And when a robot can do everything, then what do we need jobs for? when people complain about we're losing our jobs to Mexico, well, it's like, no, you're losing jobs to technology, and
Yeah.
we're not going to need like a lot of the jobs that we have now. So is it a world where everyone is it a utopia where everything's done for us, or is it a dystopia, or what's it going to be? And
That's an interesting question because I am speaking at Rollins College on an HR panel. It's the SHRM panel this weekend. And one of the questions that, this is totally not planned, the questions that they said that they would like to know more about, and so I did quite a bit of research on it. It was, what is the future of HR? And one of the things that came out of my research is, that's the very same question. What does that job market look like for us? The important thing for us to all remember is that the machines aren't going to necessarily create themselves. They can. I mean, we can create a machine that can create a machine, right? But there's this place of our own imagination and our own creativity that's going to be something that actually is ahead of the machines. So the machines, yeah,
Hopefully.
there will be some jobs that we lose, and there's going to be other jobs that are going to be coming up that we can't even see right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So-
I think I heard a stat the other day that like 80% of all jobs that will be here in the next 10 years don't exist yet.
Yes.
And that's probably not the
Yes.
correct stat exactly.
I don't think it is the right one,
but
but
it's
you're
something
right.
like that where we don't exactly know what that job market will look like in the future.
So we have to stay open to it, flexible. And honestly, I think if you think about everything that we see in movies, like face transplants and all of the amazing things that people do, driverless cars, all of that came out of movies before we started inventing it. And then, so somebody thought about it from that perspective, and then it turned into this other thing that now we have it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just like I mean, face transplants are happening now. I think the second
Oh,
one
it's
just
happened a long
yeah.
time ago, yeah.
Yeah, and even like going back to saying like movies, like even like the smartwatch, you always used to see like James Bond always like talking to his thing, and now you see it all the time because we all do it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like that. Did we have any other questions for him?
That was all.
Awesome.
Thank you, Austin, for being our intern spotlight.
Very
It was my
good.
pleasure.
Yeah. And so now I wanted to move into something that I don't know if anybody ever listens to this, so it's open for all of you guys. Listens to this podcast. It's Reid Hoffman's Masters of Scale. Anybody, you've heard it?
Heard of it.
Yeah. Have you listened?
I haven't heard of it, no.
This one is so cool. I always recommend this podcast to others. It's entertainment, not first. It's definitely knowledge, but it's also this incredible, entertaining show that moves at a very fast pace, that has high-level individuals that come in and talk about their own entrepreneurial stories that have innovation in them, incredible things. So one of the podcasts that I was listening to talked about first principle thinking. So I pulled that one up. And, I have to look over here at my notes. Reid Hoffman is the partner with Greylock Partners, and they work with entrepreneurs to build market-transforming companies. Notable Greylock portfolios include LinkedIn, Facebook, Workday, Airbnb, all types of different companies, Instagram, Pandora. And so these are really amazing shows. Okay, little note. I see it. Okay, got it. So first principle thinking is used in Silicon Valley, and it's the idea that everything that we do is underpinned by a foundational belief, some type of core values, things of that sort. And it's really short, so I know we still have a couple of other things that we have to add on here. I don't know if anybody has heard of first principle thinking or if they actually use it in the workplace. David, have you ever heard of this?
Yeah, it's. I was out at a conference in Jackson Hole, and they were speaking of that, and as a whole, to move either technology or innovation for the greater good. What can you do to change and continue to add value, I guess would be from my perspective. So
Yeah, and it's like, what can you pull upon the people inside of your business and say, what can we do to make our customer experience better, our employee experience better? It's looking for the ways that you bring that innovation and improvements in there. Have you ever heard of it, Austin?
I have not. I'm gonna have to listen to that.
Okay.
well, I think those type thought leaders are looking to best practices.
Yeah.
They want to see that everyone strives for add on, because to the point that you guys were making, we don't even know what we don't know. And you're striving, if you recognize that, you're constantly going to be looking for innovation and talking and pushing the envelope. I think there's more collaboration than there's ever been before.
I do.
This open sourcing and people leaving their technology or their IP open for innovation for people to come from the outside, I think that will change the world.
Yep. And it's just what Austin was saying earlier too, where the government and the educational partners and the for-profit, they're all coming together to bring that there. So I know we have to wrap up. So I'm going to let you do our sponsor message, John.
All right. Our sponsor number 2, BMDM Marketing Agency. BMDM is a direct marketing agency focused on helping companies reach individuals through online and offline means. Through their newest product enables them to send postcards or letters to homes of anonymous website visitors within 24 hours of their visit, using a patented IP matching technology and our in-house on-demand printing. Thank you, BMDM Marketing Agency, for sponsoring the Intern Whisperer Live.
And so now we have more transition music that's invisible. The Valencia Spotlight. I also want to make sure I'm giving a special shout out to our Valencia Community College partner on the East Campus is where you can find this radio program. It's the state-of-the-art social broadcasting studio with a great atmosphere. I hope everybody that watches us sees these cool psychedelic lights. We have knowledgeable staff, and a special shout out to John Q. We love him. He is the program manager here. Fantastic environment to produce in and easy equipment to use, and Jerron's going to be testing me on that next week.
Of course.
Yes.
I will.
All right. So we have more transition music right now, and then we're going to what?
All right. Do any of our guests have any shout-outs before we end the show?
I'll give a shout out to President Hidd at UCF, and thank you for all your service and retiring coming up in June. So appreciate everything you've done for this area and the school.
I would say shout out to all the interns that have worked with us, Austin being the leader of the pack of that, and thank you to Isabella for allowing the opportunity to happen. So thank you to both of you.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, David. I'm going to give a shout out, of course, to Valencia, to Andy and Jerron, and always all of our guests that have been in the past, present, and then upcoming guests. And then I would say a special shout out to Starter Studio, honestly, because they've done some really great things down there, and people should be looking to see what's coming next. And what about you, Jerron? Shout out?
A shout out to my parents, of course, all the time for always supporting me, and my Aunt Darlene, because as
Yay,
you said
we love
last
Aunt
episode,
Darlene.
she's my biggest fan.
Yes. She's always liking and giving us comments and feedback. That's awesome. So how can people contact us? I filled this in so we would actually have it. info@internpursuit.com, and the website is internpursuit.com. And then the phone number is 321-422-2166 if you want to find out how you too can have an outstanding experiential compliant intern program. So you want to have us all sign off and say goodbye?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Are you all ready?
Yeah.
We are.
All right. Let's play the music.
Yay, we love this music.
This has been Jerron.
This is Isabella.
This has been Austin.
This has been David.
And thank you for listening to the Intern Whisperer Live. We'll see you next week. Hope you enjoyed the time.